Nightcast. Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth brings you the current news from the world today and how it relates to Bible prophecy. Understanding the end-time events leading to the peaceful world tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth.
Good evening, friends, and welcome to this March 5, 2015 edition of Nightcast. Our opening story tonight, friends, we take a look at the worldwide risk of massive flooding. The number of people affected by river flooding around the world could almost triple, according to this opening analysis in this opening story tonight. Could almost triple, they say, over the next 15 years for a couple of reasons they give, and that's not even including the reasons that God gives in Leviticus 26 and Deuteronomy 28, saying that if you diligently hearken to the voice of the eternal God, your creator who made the heavens and the earth, blessings, and he enumerates them. And then halfway through the chapter, he says, but on the other hand, if you don't obey your creator, then just the opposite of those blessings, one of which is rain in due season, which means proper amount of rain instead of all this flooding. The curses, though, are this, flooding, and there are natural occurrences that men are able to take a look at and predict, and as they're doing in this analysis. But then the things that they can't predict or that don't get it added into it that sometimes will make it, well, it's far worse than we thought it was going to be. It's because men are not obeying their Creator, and God adds a curse to it to, as he explains it, to help people wake up. And he says, after he does the regular curses, he says, and if you still don't obey after those first curses, I'll curse you 7 times the more. Read them in your own Bible, in Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28. Real simple. It's something that applies. It's like the law of gravity. Has anything come along, friends, since the beginning of the world that has changed the way gravity works? Same thing for God's law on whether we obey him or not. He says, you obey me, I bless you. You don't obey me, wham, I pull out the belt, the branches off the leaves of the tree. But, modern education is teaching people, oh, don't spank your children. We got everything upside down. Friends, God, a parent loves it when their child obeys them, especially if they're a good parent and who only wants good things for their children. You love it when your kids obey you. And our Creator, same with us, because he wants to see us happy and joyful, and his laws of love are made to make us happy and joyful. All right, well, I'm getting my introduction kind of long-winded. Let's get right into it here. According to the new analysis from the World Resources Institute in the United Kingdom, in the UK, almost 76,000 people per year could be at a risk of flooding if defenses are not improved, as Claire Marshall will bring out in this report.
Each year around the world, hundreds of thousands of lives are devastated by flooded rivers. New research predicts that this will get worse, and it will happen quickly. This is the first public analysis of all world data on current and future risk. According to the World Resources Institute, 21 million people are at risk, and the problem already costs almost £65 billion a year. In just 15 years, there could be 54 million people at risk, and the annual potential cost around £340 billion. The calculator is unique in bringing together different kinds of information, how people, economies and specific areas may be affected.
What this tool has allowed people to do is identify the countries most at risk. And the top few are India, Bangladesh, China, Vietnam, Afghanistan, countries that really don't have the resources right now to deal with these issues. And so there is a role for international cooperation as well. It isn't just a national problem, it's a global problem.
Here in the UK, the report claims that by 2030, if investment in flood prevention remains at current levels, the country could be facing an annual bill of more than £2 billion. It's rare that lives are lost in river flooding in this country, but here in Bradford-on-Avon, the floods of 2013 caused chaos. Water levels reached way above my head. Businesses and homes were devastated. These kinds of scenes look likely to become more frequent. The World Bank says that this calculator will help to inform governments about mitigation and defence strategies. Claire Marshall, BBC News.
All right, friends, and our next story is what's been making big news in radio talk shows all week since earlier in the week when Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke before the United States Congress at the invitation of the United States Congress. And we're going to consider a few things about that tonight. I'm going to play some things may make some of you angry, but not very much. I'm not going to play very much because some of those things that make me a little bit distraught to hear. You know, I really have admired the wit and the before we go there, though, I do have a couple of scriptures real quick to go over with you. And in fact, let's go over to a slide that we haven't gone to for a while. We just changed a lot of our camera shots, and this was harder to get to. But from our chart, right in the middle, we've got the first 5 seals of the book from the book of Revelation 6. And the first 4 seals that are active now are the ones that Jesus Christ said to watch and be praying about so that you could escape the 5th one. The next major event in prophecy to happen is the 5th seal of Revelation 6, which Jesus Christ described in plain language in Matthew 24 as Great Tribulation. Now that's a time when the 7th and final head of the Holy Roman Empire is going to be in office. This crown you see in the middle of the slide here, this is an actual photograph of the crown of the Holy Roman Empire. Once that crown is worn again, placed on the head symbolically by the Pope in a coronation ceremony that in the past has often been held in the Emperor's Hall in Frankfurt, Germany. That hall was rebuilt after the Allied bombers blew it up toward the end of World War II. And it's ready to go, ready for the Pope, the Vatican to use, to have the Pope go over and symbolically place this crown on the head of the 7th and final revision of the Holy Roman Empire unto a dictator that the Bible calls a beast, and that whole system that he will be the head of, a beast-like system, a power that will be given to him by 10 heads. But I'll come back to those 10 heads in a moment. Let's just point out what's going to happen during this Great Tribulation. It'll be a time of a great martyrdom of God's saints. It'll be the time of round 3 of World War. That 7th and final head of the Holy Roman Empire will revive World War. It'll be the time of 2 witnesses who will be on the scene giving testimony regarding God and God's ways, which you can go ahead and start reading that testimony in a way. In Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28, it tells you there, you diligently hearken to the voice of the Eternal, and it's blessing time. You don't, and it's cursings. And this will be the greatest curse upon man. Jesus Christ described the time of this 5th seal of the Great Tribulation as a time of trouble that no trouble like it since the beginning of the world has ever been as bad as it's going to be, no, nor ever shall be, thankfully. And again, it'll be the time of World War III, round 3 of World War. It'll be the time of the Philadelphia era of God's end-time church will be taken to the Middle East, just east of the waterway that runs from Lake Tiberias down to the Dead Sea, an area that is triangulated by Daniel in chapter 11, verses 40, 41, 42, saying it's an area between the land of the children of Ammon, of the Edomites, and one more. Let's see, Ammon, Edom, and the Moabites. You can read about it, Daniel 11, verses 40, 41, 42, right in that area right there. But the power of this beast will be given to him by 10 concurrent kings of this end time who elect to give the power to this seventh and final head. And then the woman you see, and then that the seventh head is the one represented on this beast you see on your screen now, which is the beast from Revelation 13. There's two beasts in Revelation 13. That first beast is the one that comes up from out of the ocean. This latter beast, this another beast that's beginning, that is depicted in the second half of Revelation 13, beginning at verse 11, is shown to have a woman riding this seventh head of this beast from the land, this land beast, and it has 10 horns on it. And these are not the same 10 horns that are on the beast from the ocean, which those are successive horns, but the horns on this seventh head from the beast from the land are concurrent kings. They all exist at the same time. And they give their power to this seventh and final head. And again, that head will be wearing this crown of the Holy Roman Empire. One last time, one final time as that thing is revived. And friends, let's come on out of there and get back over to where we're going now. I was just mentioning to you, though, that that'll be a time of World War III, nation against nation. Now, excuse me, what we were just describing about the floods, let's go back to this chart just for a moment. The fourth seal of these, now Jesus Christ was saying that it'd be a good idea if you want to avoid that fifth seal I was just mentioning, the Great Tribulation, a time of trouble that's Jesus Christ described as being so bad, no trouble since the beginning of the world has ever been as bad as what's going to be once this Great Tribulation comes upon the whole world, except for that triangulated area I mentioned from Daniel 11, just east, a little strip of area just east of the waterway between Lake Tiberias and the Dead Sea. Now, don't anybody try to go over there and, I'm going to buy some land or mark me a place over there. You won't be able to protect yourself if you're not accounted worthy. Somebody will kill you over there, blow you up. It's an extremely troubled area anyway, or a snake will just come up and bite you. You need to be doing the things God said to do that will cause God to account you worthy to escape. As he says in Luke 21, verse 36, he says, watch, and watch what? He was just describing the events that answered the question the disciples asked about what would be happening at the time of your return and of the end of this age. And he said these things that are described or depicted by these four seals. And Jesus Christ in plain language reveals what these four seals from Revelation 6 mean in Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21. You can read about them, see exactly what they mean, but I want to focus us on this fourth one for a moment. The fourth seal, the pale horse, relates to our opening story about all these floodings. Now, many of you are thinking, well, wait a minute, this fourth seal is a seal of disease epidemics and pestilence. Yes, it is, and I'm not disagreeing with that, so there's no controversy. There's nothing contrary to that fact that, yes, indeed, Jesus Christ, as he described it, in three different words, the main word he used there was loimus. We have that worded right below where it says plagues there on that column, fourth column over, where the number 4, it says pale horse is. Yes, indeed, that's pestilence and disease epidemic, the plagues of Egypt. But Jesus Christ also described, and let me show you where he did that. He described in Matthew 24, verse 7, in plain language. He's describing the second, third, and fourth seals in verse 7 of Matthew 24. Let's bring that full screen. You can see he says, for nation shall rise against nation. Now he's describing the second seal there, and kingdom against kingdom. And as he described it in plain language, there would be, in verse 6, he's saying there would be war and rumors of war, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom, war escalating into world wars with nation against nation and nation against kingdom, or even kingdom against nation or kingdom against kingdom would be world war, which we're going to see again once that seventh head of the Holy Roman Empire is revived and that crown placed symbolically on his head. That's the red horse, the horse of war. And then he said there shall be famines. Now that's your third horse, which is depicted by a black horse in Revelation 6. And in plain language, Jesus Christ said very simply, that's famine. That's limos in the Greek, as he put it. And then he said, and there would be pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. Now that is your fourth seal. It's both pestilences and earthquakes. However, now, you notice on our chart, we also have, beside the loimos for the disease epidemics and the seismus, the word Jesus Christ used for the earthquakes there was seismus, and the word actually, seismus, means seismic activity. And if you look up the word in a good Greek English lexicon, you'll see that it defines it as commotions in the air, and gives the example of gale force winds, and commotions on the ground, and gives the example of earthquakes. Now, the King James translators rendered the word used in Matthew 24:7 only as this word seismus. They rendered it only as earthquakes, but it actually means much more than earthquakes. Commotions in the air, gale force winds, commotions on the ground, and it just simply says such as earthquakes. The word actually means commotions on the ground, and commotions of a seismic nature. And commotions on the ground of a seismic nature can also include volcanic eruptions. It can include tsunamis. It can include wildfires. And as the example from our first story, floods. And then if that's not enough, Christ also went on, and you see we've got the word terike after that. Now, where does that come from? The parallel chapter that describes this same event. Look at it again here from Matthew 24. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines, limus, and pestilences, loimus, and earthquakes, seismus. I'm giving you the Greek terms for these, in diverse places. Now, that's Matthew's rendering of how Jesus Christ was, in plain language, describing the second, third, and fourth seals, which are depicted by the red, black, and pale horse in Revelation 6. Now, the parallel chapter in Mark 13, Mark is describing the very same explanation Jesus Christ was giving, but he uses, this is not just a different rendering by the King James, he actually uses a different Greek word than Matthew used in one place here. It starts out the same way as Matthew 24, verse 7. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And that's your second horse, the red horse. And there shall be earthquakes in diverse places, and there shall be famines and troubles. Now, the earthquake is, again, the same word Matthew used, seismus. The word famine is the same word, limus, that Matthew used in Matthew 24. But Mark did not use the word that Matthew used for one of those events. I went the wrong way, I'm sorry. Matthew used famines and pestilences. The word for pestilences that Matthew used was loimus. Mark didn't use the word loimus at all. He mentioned the seismus, the earthquakes. He mentioned the limus, the famines. But then, instead of loimus, he mentioned terike, troubles, still describing the same explanation that Jesus Christ gave, which tells you, like two persons at the same accident, one will throw in some details from where he's standing and the other will throw in some detail from where he's standing. You get the whole picture put together. You see that Christ did not just describe the fourth seal as pestilence, he also described it as troubles, terike. And you look up the word terike, troubles, in a good Greek English lexicon, and you see that it means troubled waters, both literally and figuratively. And the troubled waters, there are your floods, if you don't include them under the seismic activity of commotions on the ground. Well, it's covered under the word terike, because that means troubled waters, both literally and figuratively. Look it up in your own Greek English lexicon. You'll see that. It also means, in the figurative sense, it means trouble of like mobs and seditions, and trouble that escalates but is not yet the mega trouble of the fifth seal. It's trouble that leads up to that fifth seal. but it's just trouble, just general trouble like we're having around the world today. And you could even say that the trouble when you got a house divided and people arguing politically is certainly and definitely trouble. We're going to cover a few things that relate to the political atmosphere going on. You know, I accidentally today, when I was preparing for this program, I hit a button that started about 3, 4, or 5 news video clips all playing at one time. And as I sat there and listened to that mumbo jumbo, you could actually hear something from here and something from here and blah, blah, just like a room with a whole bunch of people talking at one time. You know, and depending on how close you are to this person or that person's table or whatever, you know, you hear different things. And I could hear a little of this and a little of that, and I thought, wow, what a hodgepodge, what a mess. And I thought, hey, how interesting. I almost wish I had recorded all of that going at once onto one video so I could have played that back here. You know, that's just like the world today, and especially the event from this week after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke in the United States in Congress. You got this person giving their opinion, that person giving their opinion, and blah, 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 and on it goes. And as they say in this video, now, you know, the BBC has some extremely skillful and talented reporters, some of them with a great deal of intellect and wit even. And some I've often enjoyed hearing the wit that they put in a news story. But when there's a real heavy leaning of bias in one direction and you just really press it and overpress it, it gets to be where, wait a minute, some of you are making politics out of something that really, I don't believe was intended to be politics, especially this. I've got a video clip. I'm going to go back 2 years from now, and you'll hear Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying the same thing he's saying right now. And with greater concern now because the lull, that thing which he never liked from the beginning anyway, to try to deal with Iran back in November of 2013, and that wasn't the real beginning. The real beginning, there were negotiators on the ground in Iran going back for a year before that. And then it gets public, and they do this thing in Geneva after they've got it all set up to make a deal that's supposed to come to something final in 6 months. And nothing happens. They delay it for several more months. Nothing happens. They delay it for more months. No final deal. They delay it more months. Been over a year. Now we're talking November 2013. So November last year was 1 year, and then December, January, February, March were several months past a year, and still no final deal. And what's the final deal? You got to, once they do have a final deal, they're talking now like, you listen to these reports and they say, hey, they could have a nuclear bomb in 3 months. Well, we're trying to get it so they couldn't have one for 1 year. Okay, well, look, they've already delayed you for a year. I'm going to show you that video tonight, part of that video where they tell you, we pulled some trickery on you. I've been telling you, go back and look at that in the archive. I'm going to pull out something. I got the I pulled out the one from December of 2013, where on December 21 we aired it, where former United States Secretary of State George Schultz was saying you can't trust them. I'm going to show you a little piece of audio or a video frame where that shows Saudi Arabia is saying you can't trust them, that they are misleading the United States. All right, well, rather than just tell you all that, let's get to it. I'm delaying because I don't really want to play this particular, or too much of this particular news clip here, because, KDK, I usually love your stories a lot, and the way you beautifully and most wittily handle them. But this one... I'm only just going to play a little bit of it.
Thanks very much for coming in. Was it useful for Mr. Netanyahu to come and address Congress like this?
Well, I think it was very useful for his own re-election campaign 2 weeks off before the voters in Israel make a decision. He's actually this week trailing in the polls behind his main rival, Isaac Herzog, and he's got a problem with the President of the United States, which normally the Israeli voters don't like. A prime minister can't handle his relationship with the president, but now he's got a...
Well, okay, all right, let's stop right there, because when you've got a president of the United States that's working against your country, of course you're going to have a problem with that president. When you've got a president that's trusting an enemy that elder statesmen say cannot be trusted, you've got a president that maybe isn't too wise, and you've got maybe to look at Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28, and see, well, what are the people of this country doing? We are promoting pornography like no other country. We are promoting so-called marriages that are an affront to the great God, who was the one who created created the institution of marriage between a man and a woman. Oh, that's not politically correct, Stephen. Well, that's a big problem, you see, because the politics of this world are an affront to the great God who created the world and put man on it, made him from the dust of the earth. You know, the God of this world is a being whose name was Lucifer, bright and shining star, beautiful angelic being, made the head, put on the throne of this earth as the God of the earth, representing the God family here on the earth. But, like a Frankenstein monster, he decided this earth wasn't good enough. He wanted the rest of the universe. He says, we're being cheated. Look, you know, we want more rule than just this earth. So he went up to God's throne, his creator. And he doesn't have creative powers himself, but he's got power, and he took 1/3 of all of God's angels, the 1/3 God had given him to be here on the earth to beautify this earth, and then they would have been beautification projects around other parts of the universe. But he wanted to take it prematurely, so he goes up to take over God's throne. You can read about that in Isaiah. Well, I'll look it up for you another time. I can't remember the chapter at the moment. I think it's Isaiah 28 maybe, but you can read about it, how Lucifer attempted to go up and take over God's throne and wanted to replace God, but God had the upper hand on him and threw him back down to this earth, potholes on the moon, a lot of planets messed up on Satan's way back here, renamed him Satan, called him the devil, because he became, as if it were a Frankenstein monster, trying to do in, kill, take over the throne of his creator. All right, that's the history behind man. So, you've got a situation now where man, he put man on this earth and said, obey me, you'll have life eternal, you eat off the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you make your own decisions for what's right and wrong, and you'll have hodgepodge of confusion, and one person saying this, one person saying that, and accusing the Israeli prime minister. Let me say, see if I can tell you who KDK was interviewing here. This is Mr. Indike, who used to work for Mr. Obama's, so even the lead-in says, so he's partisan, but it also, the lead-in for this news story says there are plenty of people who agree that the State of the Union-esque speech was somehow unseemly in a foreign leader. You know, friends, when you've got a situation where you've got an enemy that, as Mr. Netanyahu said, who could not only destroy Israel, he could destroy the whole world. You give him these nuclear powers. You know, we're already concerned with nuclear overkill. But Martin Indike, the former U.S. Special Envoy for Israeli-Palestinian relations, that was who Ms. Katie Kay was talking with there. Now, I've got the clip from the former U.S. Secretary of State George P. Schultz, who spoke in December. No, I'm sorry. He spoke in November. We're going back. We aired this on November 21st, was it? I believe November 21st in 2013, when the BBC went to Mr. Schultz, former United States Secretary of State George P. Schultz, and here's what he had to say.
They're known as great drug merchants, not for nothing. They're good at this business of smiling and encouraging on and then cutting your throat. So you have to be tough-minded, you have to be realistic. Iran is the country that's the biggest supporter of terrorism in the world. They do it directly, they do it through proxies such as Hezbollah. So they're a pretty tough customer.
All right, friends, and now there you have, and I'm going to back it up and play it again because I clipped the audio right at the beginning, and I want you to hear that he definitely saying Iran. Let's go with Mr. Schultz one more time.
The Iranians are known as great drug merchants, not for nothing. They're good at this business of smiling and encouraging on and then cutting your throat. So you have to be tough-minded, you have to be realistic. Iran is the country that's the biggest supporter of terrorism in the world. They do it directly, they do it through proxies such as Hezbollah. So they're a pretty tough customer.
Okay, there you have the former United States Secretary of State George P. Schultz in an interview the BBC did with him back in November 20. We aired it on November 21st of 2013, and you have that same time period. We also played, I pulled this from basically the same archive, might be a different day or two in November, but we have Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, then, friends, way back at the end of 2013, November 2013, right after this Geneva conference, from the beginning. He understands, like George P. Schultz does, you can't trust the Iranians, and so listen to what Mr. Netanyahu said in November 2013, well, 2 years before any election. You cannot make any political thing out of his speaking back in November 2013. You really shouldn't be making it now, whether he's in office after a couple of weeks or not. He's concerned for his people in Israel, and as he well put it, he's concerned for the rest of the world in their naivete in trying to deal with an enemy like Iran, the Persians, who are the people that go back to Bible stories and the book of Esther, true stories about how they had a proclamation to do away all the Jews way back then. But God had plans otherwise and worked through Esther. Let's hear Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking from this recording in November 2013.
Last night is not a historic agreement. It's a historic mistake. It's not made the world a safer place. Like the agreement with North Korea in 2005, this agreement has made the world a much more dangerous place. I know that many share the concern of Israel, especially in the region, and there's a reason for this. For years, the international community has demanded that Iran cease all uranium enrichment. Now, for the first time, the international community has formally consented that Iran continue its enrichment of uranium. And this is in direct contravention of UN Security Council resolutions. Iran is taking only cosmetic steps, which it could reverse easily within a few weeks. And in return, sanctions that took years to put in place are going to be eased. Iran is going to receive billions of dollars worth in sanctions relief. So the pressures on Iran are being lifted, they're being eased. And with the lifting of this pressure, this first step could very well be the last step. Without continued pressure, what incentive does the Iranian regime have to take serious steps that actually dismantle its nuclear weapons capability?
And friends, not only have they not taken serious steps, I'm going to show you the video of a former presidential advisor to Iran, just speaking about this. Well, he spoke in, by the time we got his video and were able to air it, we aired it on December 11, 2013, with that former advisor to the president of Iran saying, we fooled the United States. We fooled the European leaders because we got some stuff we're working on underground. Now Mr. Netanyahu said more, and we played that whole part of that interview, or that speaking from November 2013 by the Israeli Prime Minister on our program in November 2013. But let me go now to just a video frame from a BBC report at this same time. Again, November, we aired this whole story, but I just want to show you the frame close up from a story that aired in November 2013 where Jeremy Bowen was reporting how Saudi Arabia, this is a frame from a video from the Saudi Arabia television, where they reported on the nuclear deal as Iran misleading the United States. So Saudi Arabia is also in the mix here of those telling you cannot trust Iran. Saudi Arabia saying Iran cannot be trusted, and they misled the United States. Now, if that's not enough to convince some people, hey, we may be being foolish to try to trust these people that former U.S. Secretary of State George P. Schultz said they'll smile at you, encourage you on, and cut your throat. Now, then if that's not enough, and if Saudi Arabia's distrust is not enough, and if the Israel, who has super intelligence and has reason to be extremely concerned about what Iran does, if that's not enough to tell you Iran can't be trusted, how about taking it from an Iranian himself, from a former advisor? I got one clip that before that comes out, I'll show you the clip of the former advisor in a moment, but this video, I can't play the audio, it's got some music I don't have a license for in it, but this video clip actually shows the people of Iran being concerned about the hegemony factors. They're not in favor. They want to see the sanctions out of the way, because they've suffered this. The government of Iran has let their people suffer it while they maintained a strategy to try to get a bomb and make their people suffer because of the sanctions. And so it's really their leadership that the people should be upset with. And as they see this deal coming down, there's some. And there's talk like they deserve rights. If I played this for you to hear, they feel they deserve rights to have nuclear power.
Cautious.
All right, but I want to get to the other one. Let me. This is November 2013 video clips I pulled out, friends, and here's a frame from this one that shows you how the local people are concerned about hegemony fears. You know, they feel like, hey, this deal could lead to another country having more than sanctions over us, having some kind of real extreme control over us, which the local people, they don't like that. But now here's the opening clip from live television in Syria that we aired this whole clip on December 11, 2013, where the former, and we'll tell you, they openly talk about their deceit and trickery and laugh about it. Let me roll this forward a little bit and tell you who here. This is a frame right here that tells us who is speaking. Mohammed Sadek al-Husseini, former political advisor to Iranian President Khatami, and this appeared on Syrian news television in Syria on December 11, 2013. And we were able to grab this that same day and a version with English subtitles put onto it. Play it, and in this, I'm going to play a few minutes of it, not the whole thing, but just a few minutes, because I hope somehow we can get this before the United States administration, before the Secretary of State, the current Secretary of State, John Kerry, before the President of the United States. And yet, friends, I have a feeling that if they saw it, they would just poo-poo it as, oh, that's just politics. He was political advisor. He's telling you that, and he's still in touch, he would know. He's telling you that the uranium they revealed, oh yeah, we'll reduce that because it's only at this level, we'll reduce it. We didn't tell you about this uranium we have underground. He actually says that. Let's roll a little bit of this. I've told you about this and told you about it and told you about it. Let me let you have a look and a listen at this yourself. Now, he's speaking in the Arabian language, but read across the bottom, you'll see the English subtitles here.
معركة طاحنة على كل المستويات نحن والأمريكان. هذا حلف الحديبية، هذا صلح الحديبية، هذا جنيف الحديبية، سيأتي بعده فتح مكة. جنيف 3 حصلت ب3 عناوين. العنوان الأول الصبر الاستراتيجي. إيران صبرت استراتيجيا النفس الطويل، يعني 10 سنين 11 سنة وإحنا صابرين ونخطط لليوم الذي يأتي بعد 10 سنوات، بحيث يصير عندنا كمية من اليورانيوم المخصب كبير قد ما بتنزليه. وبالمناسبة خذي هاي المعلومة، عندما يعني تتاجري مع الإيراني خصوصا بالسياسة، حتى وأنت تخرجي إنك ربحانة أنت خسرانة.
Friends, I'm pausing it right there because I want you to lock in on that point that the former presidential advisor just said. When you try to negotiate with Iran, you lose even when you think you've won. Now, that says essentially the same thing that former United States Secretary of State George P. Schultz said to us when he said, they'll smile at you, encourage you on, and cut your throat. You see, they'll smile at you. You lose even when you think you've won, because they're smiling at you and encouraging you on. And then, whoosh, I'm going to play a little more of this for you, because you should see where they go after this. And they're not only talking about destroying Israel, they're talking about next destroying the United States.
طبعا عندما تكوني خصم.
Mr. Schultz, who you'll hear in a moment in this video, was himself involved in top-level talks as part of. Okay, friends, I'm taking an excerpt from our December. I'm taking an excerpt from our December 11 program, and in that December 11 program, when I played, there's Mr. Schultz.
Not for nothing. They're good at this business of smiling and encouraging on and then cutting your throat. So you have to be tough-minded. You have to be realistic.
I played that twice for you before.
Iran,
I was playing it
country that's the biggest
in our program in December of 2013 when I played excerpts from the Syrian television. Now, there's a later time when I played the whole 20-minute thing from Syrian television. You know, friends, there is some wisdom from an elder statesman, an elder spokesman. But who's listening today? Just like King Rehoboam, Solomon's son, he refused to listen to the elder counselors. He preferred to take the advice of his younger counsel, and instead of reducing taxes on the 10 tribes of Israel that were lining up under. Okay, friends, I'm going to come on out of that, and hopefully, I think in this clip there will be a little bit more where I go to some more of what the Syrian television, what the former advisor to the president said on Syrian television about what they were doing. If you want to hear that program, here, we're going back to it now for a little bit.
هم رفعوا درجة تقسيم اليورانيوم إلى درجة عالية جدا أكثر مما يريدون، بحيث لما خفضوا لهم طلعوا منتصرين. وهذه المملكة في طريقها إلى الانقراض، دورها انتهى. السبب لماذا؟ لأن الإيرانيين أصبحوا في البحر المتوسط. أنت بدأتي بداية ممتازة ورائعة بالتحليل حول الوضع الدولي. في تحول يوم وصل اليونان إلى سواحل المتوسط سقطت بلاد فارس 300 سنة بدل الإسكندر المقدوني. اليوم يوم يصل الإيرانيون إلى سواحل المتوسط في صور 300 عام أمامنا، هزيمة للأمريكيين وبني الأصفر.
Okay, friends, and as you can see, I paused it at a point there in that video where they're talking about going against the United States too. I just cut some excerpts out in that particular night's program. There's another night I played the whole Syrian television thing. Now, and thankfully, Syria Television hasn't copyrighted it in such a way so that we get content ID barred for playing it and have to go through a federal court system fight over United States fair use for a news program. At the time I originally did it, that was current news and fell under all the fair rights things. So, all right, we may get if they put up a fight over it, but it's open. They already did it. We already played it live, and they can't stop our program that is in the archives that aired live in November 2013. But I should be able to get away with playing you just that little bit of it. But and you can see, friends, that Iran is laughing at the United States. Saudi Arabia says they misled us. That I gave you that. I put up that slide that showed you from a video provided from Saudi Arabia News. They're telling everybody, look, Iran is misleading the United States. You see it on the slide behind Jeremy Bowen, BBC reporter Jeremy Bowen, right there. Okay, friends, we can beat it to death. I'm going to drop it right there because there are prophecies coming. I showed you a slide of scripture from Isaiah 9, verse 21 the other night that says eventually, see, the political climate can cause people and things that happen, and who knows what's going to happen in the voting in a couple of weeks. Political climate, with the God of this world moving things around the way he wants to play them, and he has a lot of influence still in this world, and God does hands off, especially when people aren't obeying our Creator. Look at Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28. God will take hands off. Let the God of this world have at you, have at us. And there's a time when God says, you're not obeying. Isaiah 9:21 is going to come into play where he says, Ephraim, Manasseh, Ephraim. They'll kind of fight between themselves, but they'll join up together. And it says, together they against Judah. So there's a time coming, we're already seeing some waves of it, where the government, the countries of both the U.S. and the U.K. will go against their brother Judah. And I say against their brother because here's a reminder. I put this up a couple of nights in a row. The United States today, the people of the United States are your modern-day descendants of one of the sons of Joseph, Manasseh. And the modern-day descendants of the UK and Canada and other areas around the world are your descendants of Ephraim, two of the sons of Joseph, who was one of the 12 sons. And Ephraim and Manasseh, they both take the name of Joseph as two half-tribes among the 12 tribes of Israel. All these tribes, God says, you obey me, I'll bless you. You don't, curses. And when I bless you, I bless the rest of the world through you. And friends, one of the sad things the world sometimes is not understanding is the fact that when they give Israel, any of the 12 tribes, a hard time, it kicks back in their face because the blessings to the world come through the tribes of Israel. That's the way God designed it. That's the way he's doing it. And you can call him partial if you want to. He gave the promises of the blessings to the offspring of Abraham through Isaac. He also promised a certain kind of a blessing through Ishmael to have 12 chiefdoms, 12 dukes, 12 chiefs, and and they would reign in a certain area, but not the promised land, but around it enough that they can be a thorn in the side of their brother. And they were, and they are a brother, a half-brother, but a brother. They both have the same father, Abraham. Abraham was the father, first of all, of Ishmael via Sarah's handmaid, Egyptian handmaid Hagar. And then later, God keeping the promise he made for numberless as the sand of the sea or the stars of heaven, offspring. He said, that's coming through a son born of your wife Sarah, even in her old age. And where we are today, we've got all these descendants of Ishmael and all these descendants of Israel, with Ishmael very jealous and very hateful and despiteful, and a thorn in the side of his half-brother, descended from Isaac and Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, and his 12 sons. Here's a look, friends, at one of the above-ground nuclear facilities in Iran. And one of the things that the former advisor was saying, you know, we told you about the stuff we have in this thing. It's a certain percentage. Yeah, we'll lower that. We're not telling you what we've got in our secret underground, and we're not telling you where our secret underground places are either. And we're not letting you go near there. And we're not telling you what we've already developed at a much higher stage of development than what's going on in this thing. And good luck finding it. By the time you find out about it, we'll have capabilities of bombs that are on par with your bombs. And then we'll play poker as with even hands, you know, try to make a deal with Iran once they've got these bombs developed from their underground stuff. Ding, ding, you know. All right, friends, people are going to find out soon enough. Really soon enough, it's going to be too late. It'll be the time of a great tribulation that's just going to... And if we don't obey, this is the bottom line of it all. You can political argue all you want, but the real answer comes down to Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28. Simplicity, real simple. Diligently hearken to the voice of the Eternal, and you have blessings, one of which is, he says, 5 of you will put 100 of your enemies to chase. 100 of you will put 10,000 to flight. I, the Eternal, will back you up against your enemies. But you don't obey me, I'll even break the pride of your power. Read the details in Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28. He says, I'll curse you 7 times. If you don't turn around after the curses begin, I'll break the pride of your power. And in Ezekiel 6:6, if you just keep it up, friends, he says, all of your cities will be laid waste. This couldn't happen until these latter days, when nuclear-type hydrogen bombs have come into existence since August 1955. Couldn't have been done before that. The atom bomb couldn't have done it. It's only the trigger for a hydrogen bomb with much greater destructive capabilities. All your cities will be laid waste. Ezekiel 6, verse 6. That's a prophecy for our day if we continue this land-scale disobedience to our Creator. Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28. You should read them, and friends, you've been warned. Now, let's cover a couple of things before we sign off. UK Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond met Ukrainian Foreign Minister. And by the way, we got the news on the man who got stabbed in the face. In fact, I think it may be this story. UK Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond met Ukrainian Foreign Minister Pavlo Klimkin in Kiev and reaffirmed a commitment to provide British military trainers to Ukraine. Some fighting is still taking place in the east despite the recent ceasefire deal. There's little relief for civilians caught up in the conflict. Special Foreign correspondent Fergal King and cameraman Tony Falshaw have traveled from Donetsk to Kramatorsk, and they sent this report.
War swept in here last spring and stayed, turning the landscape into a blasted wilderness. 6,000 people have been killed, 1 million displaced. Like the people of Debaltseve, after months under fire, a local charity has been able to reach them. Everywhere we went, it was mostly the elderly we met, tentatively emerging from their shelters. All you need to know about the waste and cruelty of this war is in these faces.
And friends, I wanted to just show you a little bit of that so that as you, those of you who want to follow the instruction that Jesus Christ gave us in Luke 21, verse 36, to watch events that relate to the one of the seals is the red horse, war and rumors of war, and pray about them. And if you do that, God says, I will account you worthy to escape the next major event in prophecy, the fifth seal, the Great Tribulation, which is going to come on this world, boom, like a rat trap snapping shut. Now, I mentioned to you about the U.S. ambassador that got stabbed in the face in South Korea. He was attacked in Seoul. Let's go for that story.
The attack was vicious and serious.
I'm bleeding here. Okay.
Ambassador Lippert was at a breakfast meeting when a 55-year-old man slashed him twice, once in the face and once across the body. The attacker was arrested and pinned down. He'd shouted that he wanted a unified Korea. He also voiced anger at the large US military presence in Korea. American troops and South Korean troops have just started a joint exercise involving 200,000 personnel.
The American embassy is a fortress, like all American embassies. But the event the ambassador was attending is just across the street, walking distance in the same neighborhood. And that may have led to a false sense of security. The ambassador, when he took up his post, indicated he wanted to be much more open, out there with the people. That policy will now be rethought.
The ambassador was taken to hospital, but his injuries are not life-threatening. All the same, the attack highlights just how strong emotions about a divided Korea remain, even though the civil war that splits this peninsula ended with a ceasefire more than 6 decades ago. Stephen Evans, BBC News, Seoul.
Okay, thank you very much, Stephen Evans. And friends, a small apology. I apologize for not saying in advance that there might be some, this might be offensive to some, but if this has caused you a little bit of concern, then what I hope you'll do is this. As soon as this program is over, with the disgust and the feelings you may have, run to your prayer closet and cry out to God, "Oh God, thy kingdom come." And hopefully it'll help you put some teeth and guts and real feeling and heart into your prayers. Thank you for joining me tonight, friends, on this Thursday night report for Nightcast. We're off now until Sunday. I am here on a live stream on the weekend on another channel. For those of you who know about it, I'll just make that brief reminder. Otherwise, those who tune in for the day's current news related to the Bible and prophecy, God willing and the creek don't rise, we'll be back again Sunday night. Until next time, your host for Nightcast, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth, saying so long and good night, friends.
You have been watching Nightcast with Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth. Nightcast can be seen Sunday through Thursday nights here on COGTV.org. Tonight's program is also available anytime on demand in the COGTV.org video archive.